morning. Thank you so much. And welcome, folks. Good morning to you. Welcome to Momentum Mondays. Super excited to have you guys join our call today. Again, this is Jill Green, the host of the call that's designed to wake you up, shake you up, and take you up to new levels in your life, career, business, and your dreams. Who is Momentum Monday for? Folks, this is for everyone. If you're a domestic engineer, if you're a 9-to-5er, a career professional, an entrepreneur, a traditional business owner, and if you are a direct sales manager, folks, whoever you are, this call is for you. We are very excited today to have an amazing guest with us to join us in our powerful discussion on the power of habits. Now, last week, we introduced the D model in order to transform your habits, and we said we have to bring in the big guns. The big guns, ladies and gentlemen. Upscale magazine named him one of the top 50 power brokers in Black America. Black Enterprise magazine called him Black America's #1 networker and featured him on the cover of their magazine. Dr. Fraser has appeared on 7 national magazine covers and was recently inducted into the Minority Business Hall of Fame. It is an honor to have him with us today. Good morning, Mr. Fraser.
Good morning, Jill. Thank you so much for inviting me on this morning, and thank you so much for producing and hosting Momentum Monday. It's a great idea, so I'm really glad to be a part of it.
Well, it is completely our honor to have someone like you join us today to talk about, the key success habits. We know that you've had the opportunity to write about it, to teach about success habits. You've had the opportunity to create an amazing national, international platform to help others become successful with your networking conference. So today we have people from all over the country chiming in to hear about those critical key success habits that we all need. And so if you wouldn't mind, can you give us some of those, please?
Sure. First, I want to thank everybody who took time out of their busy life to be on this important call this morning with you, and recommend a couple of books if you have not already read them. You really need to read them. The Power of Habit. You can pick it up at the airport. It's probably the best book written on habits. Habits to be successful. It's a wonderful book. The other book, if you have not read it, the one that I recommend is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Because at some juncture in one's life, as one gets older and wiser, you will understand that your EQ, or emotional intelligence, will be more important than your IQ. It's very, very, very important. So to learn the art and science of comporting yourself and managing your 5 most important emotions, and then using the management of those emotions to cultivate, nurture, and to build relationships at work, at home, and in the community is absolutely critical. So we'll put a pin in that, and we'll pick up on that in a moment or so.
Absolutely. Okay, so you said those are The Power of Habits and Emotional Intelligence 2.0?
Yeah, The Power of Habits and
Awesome.
Emotional Intelligence
Awesome.
2.0, which is commonly, emotional intelligence is commonly referred to as EQ, which is basically the control of your core emotions, your emotions of happy, sad, angry, afraid, and ashamed. Because we're fundamentally hardwired to give our emotions the upper hand, because we feel first when we fundamentally react to things, but you have to get that under control. I think the perfect model and example and master of emotional intelligence is our President Barack Obama. If you just look at the way he supports himself, the way he manages his emotions in spite of the negativity that surrounds him, in spite of an entire political party against everything that he does, he still manages his emotions very well. And and because he does that, he has been able to succeed in spite of the negativity around him. So he's a wonderful model on the power and importance of emotional intelligence. Now, we wanted to talk about, or you wanted to talk about, and I think it's very, very important, and you notice I recommended a book on it, The Power of Habit. I don't think that there's really anything fundamentally wrong if we wanted to look at people of color. Yes, we still live in a racist society, make no mistake about that, and we have to do everything we can to overcome racism, but we must never use that. It cannot ever be a habit of using racism as a reason to fail, because if you use racism as a reason to fail, you are going to fail, because there is racism. For racism wins and you lose. So I refuse personally to use racism as a reason to fail as an African-American man living in America and having been around for 70 productive years. I have never used it and will never use it, but I know that it exists, but I've sharpened my saw, and I know and have adopted habits that has allowed me to overcome and to get around, to get over, to get through racism. So has our president, and so has millions of other people of color, black or brown people in this great country that we live in. Now, habits. I think what is fundamentally the challenge for so many of us is that we have acquired some very, let me just say it very bluntly, bad-ass habits over the last 20 or 30 years. And I think that is one of the fundamental reasons why so many of us are going backwards and sideways is we have some very, very, very bad habits. And I think once we get beyond those bad habits and adapt a couple of core habits, new habits, I don't think that success. It's impossible to fail, quite frankly. So I want to talk about what those. Well, let me talk about a particular bad habit.
Okay.
That black people have, if you don't mind, and this habit is unique only to black people. Right? No other culture in America has this badass habit but black people, and it is so egregious and so important in such a way that I just want to speak to it for a moment this morning. So what is a unique habit that only black people have that destroys them? There was a major report put out by A.C. Nielsen last year on African American television viewing habits. And what A.C. Nielsen found about us is that we are the only culture in America that watches 72 hours of television a week. We watch 40% more television than any other culture in America.
Wow.
That is fundamentally 10 hours of television every single day.
Wow.
So a Negro watching 10 hours of television a day, A, needs their ass kicked, B, can't be about anything because you're spending 10 hours a day watching television, 8 hours a day working, and 8 hours a day sleeping. You have no time to do anything, especially read, learn, and grow. So my advice, first and foremost, to African Americans in particular, is reduce your television viewership by 5 hours a day. Right? It still leaves you 5 hours to watch the Kardashians, to watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, all of these programs that do absolutely nothing for your life, unless you're a news junkie or a documentary junkie. That's another thing. But all this other crap that we consume, that stereotype and profile our people, that feed negative imagery and words into our subconscious mind, to sit on your couch drinking and sipping wine and watching 10 hours of this thing called television talk at you.
Yes.
May be one of the worst habits that we have ever adopted in the history of the 400-year history of our people in this country. So
yes.
Is there something you want to add to that?
Well, I was going to say, so that would be point number one, and I want to say, folks, if you're just joining us, you are joining us here at Momentum Mondays. We have the amazing Mr. George Fraser on the line talking about habits and success principles, and the first habit he talked about, and this is actually a bad habit, is that as African Americans, we watch 40% more television than anybody else, 72 hours a week, and that's definitely not a habit that creates success. Wow. That's a wow, George. I was not aware of that.
Yep. Well, you are aware of it now, and all of the people that volunteered to come on this call, yes. They aren't aware of it. Therefore, no one can plead ignorance.
That's right.
All right, and so hopefully you will begin over time to wean yourself from the addiction of this thing called TV. We're addicted to it. And we even often use it to babysit our children, even to raise our children. This is not good, and we must fix it, okay? So, at the Power Networking Conference, and we're putting on our 15th conference in Prince George's County next year at the Gaylord in the National Harbor, we have a course on the power of habits, and we teach and ingrain and embed the seeds of what I call the 3 master habits that every person must adapt if they want to have even the slightest chance of succeeding in America. Because this is especially true with black people. We must be excellent at whatever we do. We must be amazing at whatever your subject matter expertise is. I know that my mama taught me many years ago that as a black man, you're going to have to be twice as good to get half as much. Because if you're black and mediocre in America, you better leave, because you're going to be marginalized and ultimately you're going to be destroyed in this country if you are mediocre in America, especially as a black person. You're going to be competing with everybody in America, or most people in America. That's where all the competition is. Why? Because most Americans are just mediocre to average, right? So if you don't want to have to compete, be excellent. Because when you become excellent, you'll never have to worry about competing. People will compete for your attention. You will never have to wait in anybody's line. People will wait in line for you. So excellence must become the kitchen table conversation and the mantra for our people in the 21st century. Now, to get to excellence, there are 3 core habits that has served me extraordinarily well, and I say with humility that I have 3 honorary doctorate degrees, 1 in divinity, 1 in humanities, and 1 in philosophy. I'm not bragging. You're given an honorary doctorate for your body of work. I have a high school diploma in woodworking. That is the only earned piece of education I have. I do not have an earned undergraduate degree. I have all honorary doctorate degrees, but again, doctorate degrees are given to a person not for a thing that they do, but for a body of work that they contribute. And I'm sure that you have people on this call that have doctorates, and maybe some that even have honorary doctorates. But what that indicates when someone bestows upon you an academic credential such as that, it means that you have grooved habits. You have grooved, Groove, habits that has allowed you to fulfill the core purpose, I believe, of being black in America, and that is to earn, I should say to learn, to earn and return. Let me say that again. We as a people, we must learn, then we must earn, we must return back to our communities. We must reach down and lift up and reach back and pull forward. The piece that is missing so often in our community is returning. A tremendous number of us who are learning, because in order to earn more, you have to learn more. So there are a tremendous number of black people who are learning and who are earning, but there are only a metaphorical handful that are returning back to the community, reaching down and lifting up and reaching back and pulling forward. That's another bad habit. Is we do our thing, we get our thing going, and we leave those who are least among us behind. We move to the suburbs, rightfully so. We want to live wherever we want to live. We want the best schools that we can possibly get for our children, and we return maybe a couple of times a month when we go to church. That's not enough. That's not going to save our people. So these habits, these three habits will allow us to learn, earn, and return. So what is the first habit? I think the first habit is to develop an insatiable appetite for personal growth and development, driven by the need for constant, never-ending improvement and lifelong learning, actualized by greater knowledge of self, less entertainment, and more study and reading. In other words, we must change the E to E ratio in Black America. Dennis Kimbrough wrote extensively about this in his latest book. Our E to E ratio is 11 to 1. We spend $11 on entertainment for every $1 we spend on education. White people spend $11 on education for every $1 they spend on entertainment. So we must reverse our E to E ratio, and we must improve. Right?
So, Mr. Fraser, I want to make sure that people don't miss this. This is really powerful what you're saying, and folks, he's really directly challenging the way we do life. And so I just want to back up for a second. And you said the number one habit that we really need to develop is to develop an insatiable appetite for personal growth and development. We need to entertain less and read more. I want to pause on that because that's really, really powerful, especially you're talking about specifically the African-American community where we spend more money, invest more money in entertaining than educating ourselves. Why do you think that is a fact, Mr. Fraser? What do you think creates the need for us to entertain more and learn less?
Well, I think that being addicted to entertainment, 10 hours of television a day, I mean, I rest my case. And I didn't do the study. A.C. Nielsen did a study. That's a white organization, so a white organization did it. We know that black people believe them. If I did it, they may question me. Okay. I think that we have a need to assuage our personal pain, to escape our personal pain, the microaggressions that are performed against us every single minute of every single day. So I think that's part of it. I think when we buy Louis Vuitton and Calvin Klein, it is a way to assuage our ego, to say that we are somebody. Look at me. I am somebody. Look at the purse I have. Look at the shoes I have. Look at the suit that I'm wearing. So that's a very deep way of assuaging ego and putting our sort of metaphorical and physical best foot forward. I think that we have bad models. I think that if we look at the people who are closest to us, I say this all the time, introduce me to your 5 closest friends, and that will tell me who you are. As they know and as they go, you go. If you took an average annual income of your 5 closest friends, let's say it's $80,000 a year, that's about what you're earning, right? So unless we have a model of people earning more by doing the things that are necessary and developing a system, let's say, to earn $300,000. There's a system for earning $300,000 a year, and there's a system for earning $80,000 a year. We typically hang out with people who are operating in the same sort of vision, mindset, and system that we're operating in, right? So we're typically hanging out with people who are also watching lots of television. We're typically hanging out with people who are also caught up in consumerism and consumption and looking good and having their nails and toes done. Again, nothing is wrong with these things, except we overconsume in them and we over-index in those kinds of things that represent not the best in us. And so therefore we spend more money on the things that entertain us and to make us look good and feel good, because we have gone through the greatest psychological holocaust in the history of humankind. We have fundamentally survived slavery, and we overcame and succeeded in getting our civil rights, voting rights, and public access. That took 100 years. Overcoming slavery took 250 years. Now we're fighting a social justice with a toothpick and their sword. So there's lots of psychic work that has to be done in our community, and we give in. We do that work, and then we want to, in a sense, rest and feel good and look good and smell good, and therefore we tend to spend our money on things that allow us to move away from the hurt and pain that so many of us and realistically and practically feel. And so it's a reflection in our viewing habits, television habits, a reflection in our consumption habits. It's a reflection on the things that we want to wrap ourselves in spite of what our earnings may be. And then it's also a reflection of the people around us, the people we choose to hang with. They choose, again, to want and to have the same kinds of things. So this is a very easy thing to say what I said, an insatiable appetite for personal growth and development driven by a need for constant, never-ending improvement and lifelong learning.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, I'm really glad you shared. I'm sorry, Mr. Fraser. I'm really glad you shared that, and that's actually why we created the Momentum Monday. You talk about developing an appetite for personal growth and development. That's really what Momentum Mondays is really designed to do, to motivate people and inspire them to kind of look inside and develop themselves. And for folks of you who are joining us, we are at the top of the hour. Because we have a special guest, we'll go a little longer this morning, but you're here with Momentum Mondays with the Mr. Amazing George Fraser, and we're talking about the power of habit. At this point, we typically would be wrapping up the call, going into our after call. So for those of you who are on the line, stand by, and we will transition as if we are in our after call. And I want to go back, Mr. Fraser, to, you saying that we really need to spend less time watching TV. And that's a call out. So we've just actually had a 30-day challenge for our callers. So this month has been about habits. It's been about 30 days of giving up something, reducing something to get better. And that actually was on the list for all of us, TV. So I'm glad that you are coming behind our challenge, confirming the things that we said were important. Watching TV less, reading more, having those golden moments, networking more. And so I'd like to lead into, I guess, our final point as we wrap up the call this morning, networking. You are the master networker. And I think that is one thing that sometimes, we find ourselves challenged with. But that's the key to success. Whether we're talking about success habits and success principles, you being the amazing master networker, can you give us one final point on why networking should be one of our toolkits in our when we talk about habits?
Yeah, I wrote a book 22 years ago called Success Runs in Our Race, The Complete Guide to Effective Networking in the Black Community. And in that book, I defined networking. I said networking is the identification and the building of relationships for the purpose of sharing information, opportunities, and resources. And the emphasis on that definition is on the building of relationships and sharing, because all of life is about relationships. All of life is about working with and through other people. In fact, there is no success that you can attain, sustain, or maintain on your own by yourself in a vacuum. It's biblical. John 5:30. It's a direct quote from Jesus Christ. And here's what the quote says in John 5:30. And Jesus said, I of my own self can do nothing. Now, this was Jesus. Jesus couldn't get it done on his own by himself in a vacuum. So what's up with you? Why would you think you could do anything significant on your own by yourself in a vacuum? This passage says to me that we were born to network, that we were born to collaborate, that we were born to work with and through each other, that we were born to not only to move beyond dependence to independence, but ultimately to interdependence linked together in a common bond of caring and sharing. So all of life is about relationships, and especially if you're in business. Business is about relationships. Without relationships, you have no business. Without relationships, you have no business being in business. In fact, the business you're all really in case no one has ever told you, you're in the business of building relationships. So networking is critical and critically important. And, introduce me to your 5 closest friends. And that will tell me who you are. What am I really saying? I'm really saying to everybody on this call, don't spend major time with minor people. People going nowhere want you to go nowhere with them. People doing
Say that again, Mr. Fraser. You got to say that again. That was powerful. Don't spend major time with minor people. Break that down for me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because, people going nowhere want you to go nowhere with them. If you want to change your life, change your relationships. I mean, it's no more complicated than that. So work on your relationships, work on your networking. The most powerful asset that you will have in the 21st century will not be your computer. I'm sorry. I don't care what you've read. It will be your relationships. Because all of life is about relationships, working with and through other people. So networking is critical. Doing it the right way is even more critical, because there are a lot of people out here calling themselves networkers, and they're really not. They're really greedy, and they really don't understand how to cultivate and develop relationships over time so that those relationships can bear fruit in great abundance. And they don't understand the fundamental principle of effective networking. Most people are out here networking to get something. Wrong. You network to give. And as you give, you get. If you ain't giving, you ain't getting. If you have nothing in life, it's because you put nothing into life. That you cannot take out of the bank that which you have not put into the bank, just as you cannot take out of life that which you have not put into life. You don't believe me? Go down to a bank and try to take something out of a bank that you not put in. So it's the same thing with life. It's the same thing with relationships. So most people out here networking to get something. Wrong. You network to give, and as you give, you get. That's the first principle of effective networking. It's biblical. I did not design that. That is in the Bible. That is the system that God has designed. And so unless you are networking to find ways to fulfill the purpose of life, and the purpose of life is very simple. Why? Because God doesn't make anything complicated. We make things complicated. He doesn't make things complicated. We make things complicated so that we don't have to do them. All right? The more complicated we make, the more complicated we can make something, the more reasons we have for not doing it.
Wow.
And there are other reasons we make things complicated to control power. So let me give you the purpose of life, and now you'll understand the purpose of effective networking. The purpose of life is to love, to give, to serve, and to add value to somebody or something. There is no other for you to be sucking up this air. This is why God put you on this earth, and this is what your networking must do. And if your network doesn't do that, then you're going to fail. And you'll see that when we do not succeed at something in life, it's for one of two reasons: speed or greed. Speed or greed. You didn't learn enough and you're trying to get it done too fast, or you're just damn greedy. And therefore you're going to fail. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Well, Mr. Fraser, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning, and you definitely have directly challenged us and given us some things to think about. Folks, we are here on Momentum Mondays with Mr. George Fraser, the master networker, the founder of the top networking conference in the country. And there are a couple of things we talked about that I want to make sure you guys take with you. Now, we're talking about habits. We're wrapping up our series this month on the power of habits, and he talks about personal development. It is critical that you develop a great appetite for personal development. He talked about the fact that we should read more and entertain less, which I love. And then when he talked about networking, he said something that was very interesting, that networking is not about what you're getting, it is what you're giving. And I think that's on another call we can kind of get into that a little further, because normally when people go to network, they think about what can this person do for me, but that's not the kind of networking that he's talking about. So, Mr. Fraser, I want to thank you for challenging us. I want to thank you for having a very sober call with us and letting us know that if you want to really be successful, it's about personal development. It's about networking, which is what you can give and not what you can get. Folks, we are flat out of time. I want to thank you guys so much for dialing into Momentum Mondays, where your Mondays will never be the same. We'll be back here on Monday morning at 7:25. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Mr. Fraser. We really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, guys.